Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki, Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaya Shodhara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Abhay Charana Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaya Shodhara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. ISKCON Foundacharya, BBT Foundacharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, CC Guru and Sri Gauranga. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 5. This is text 39. Excuse me. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nanu Bhagavata Nityam Bhuta Anugraha Katara Krite Tvam Sauhridagyam Vai Vairam Karam Avairinam Nano Bhagavatam Nityam Bhutanugrahaka Tataha Rite Tvam Sauhridagyam Vai Vairankaram Avairinam.
Correction. I wrote Karataha, it's Kataraha. The T and the R should be switched.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, see what he's saying right here, the second line? Okay, give him an extra helping of something at breakfast for catching that. Okay. Nano Bhagavata Nityam. It's actually my fault. I distracted him while he was writing. It is. I did. I was over there talking to him. Nanu Bhagavata Nityam Bhutanugraha Kataraha Rite Tvam Sahidagyam Vai Vairankaram Avairinam Nanu Bhagavata Nityam Bhutanugraha Kataraha Rite Tvam Sahidagyam Vai Vairankaram Avairinam. Anyone like to chant? Bhagavatam Nityam Katar. Anu Bhagavata Nityam Nanu Bhagavata Nityam Bhutanam Grahakartaraha Vrite Tvam Sauhridagyam Vai Vairankaram Avairinam. Take the chant. Nanu Bhagavata Nityam Bhutanugraha Tataha Te Tvam Sauhridagyam Vai Vairankaram Avairinam. Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Nanu. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. Nanu Bhagavata Nityam.
Nanu Bhagavata Nityam.
Bhutanugraha Kataraha.
Bhutanugraha Kataraha.
Rite Tvam Saurudam Gnam Vai.
Rite Tvam Sauhridagyam Vai.
Vairam Karam Vairina.
Vairam Karam Avairinam.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Nanu? Now, Bhagavata, devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nityam, eternally, Bhuta, Anugraha, Kataraha, very much anxious to bestow benedictions, upon the fallen conditioned souls. Rate, accept, tvam, yourself, sauhridagyam, a breaker of friendship, therefore not countable among the Bhagavatas, or devotees of the Lord. Vai, indeed, vaidam karam, you create enmity, avarinam, towards persons who are not enemies. Translation, all the devotees of the Lord, but you, are very kind to the conditioned souls and are eager to benefit others. Although you wear the dress of a devotee, you create enmity with people who are not your enemies, or you break friendship and create enmity between friends. Are you not ashamed of posing as a devotee while performing these abominable actions? Purport. Such are the criticisms that must be borne by the servants of Nārada Muni and the disciplic succession. Through the Krishna consciousness movement, we are trying to train young people to become devotees and return back home, back to Godhead, by following rigid regulative principles. But our service is appreciated neither in India nor abroad in the Western countries where we are endeavoring to spread this Krishna consciousness movement. In India, the caste Brahmins have become enemies of the Krishna consciousness movement because we elevate foreigners who are supposed to be Malachas and Yavanas to the position of Brahmanas. We train them in austerities and penances and recognize them as Brahmanas by awarding them sacred threads. Thus, the caste Brahmanas of India are very displeased by our activities in the Western world. In the West also, the parents of the young people who join this movement have also become enemies. We have no business creating enemies, but the process is such that non-devotees will always be inimical toward us. Nevertheless, as stated in the Shastras, a devotee should be both tolerant and merciful. Devotees engaged in preaching should be prepared to be accused by ignorant persons, and yet they must be very merciful to the fallen conditioned souls. If one can execute his duty in the disciplic succession of Nārada Muni, his service will surely be recognized. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, verses 68 and 69, Yaidam paramam guyam mad bhaktesh vavidashyati Tim mayi param kritva mamevasha yasham shayaha na chatasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakritamaha bhavita na chame tasmad anya priyatro bhuvi. For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed. And at the end he'll come back to me. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Unquote. Let us continue preaching the message of Lord Krishna and not be afraid of enemies. Our only duty is to satisfy the Lord by this preaching, which will be accepted as service by Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna. We must sincerely serve the Lord and not be deterred by so-called enemies. In this verse, the word sauhridagyam, a breaker of friendship, is used because Nārada Muni and the members of his disciplic succession disrupt friendships and family life. They are sometimes accused of being sauhridagyam, creators of enmity between relatives. Actually, such devotees are friends of every living entity, suhridam sarvabhutanam, but they are misunderstood to be enemies. Preaching can be a difficult, thankless task, but a preacher must follow the orders of the Supreme Lord and be unafraid of materialistic persons. Hare Krishna. Om Agyantimarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunminitam Ninatai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Nina Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapatarubhashta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So by your good wishes and prayers, I'll say a few words. The first thing I'll say is, can you open that door just a little bit? Let some air in here. I think we sucked all the air out of here during kirtan. Everyone's chanting loudly. So, text 39. All the devotees of the Lord, but you are very kind to conditioned souls and are eager to benefit others. Although you wear the dress of a devotee, you create enmity with people who are not your enemies, or you break friendship and create enmity between friends. Are you not ashamed of posing as a devotee while performing these abominable actions? So, Prabhupada talks about the fact that devotees are always criticized by the materialist. Do we ever criticize materialists? Almost every class. So it's like there's a fight going on here, right? So, right? A little pushback. So, never the twain shall meet. What's the beginning of that? Something, never, I guess east and west or something like that. So never the twain, there's no happy medium between the devotees and the non-devotees, as long, there just isn't. Like Prabhupada, I don't know if he was commenting on that book that came out in the 70s, I'm Okay, You're Okay. Remember that book? Can anyone remember that book? I'm Okay, You're Okay? So it was a bestseller. I'm Okay, You're Okay. I don't know. It was a woman. She wrote it. It was a bestseller. It was just kind of about, being accepting of others and so on. I'm okay, you're okay. So, but our philosophy is I'm okay and you're not. That's the devotee's philosophy. Woo! But the point is that I'm okay, you're okay is all on the mundane platform. And ours is what we're saying is anyone who, the transcendental platform is where everything's okay. That's where everything's okay, on the spiritual platform. Everything's okay there. On the material platform, because of all the dualities, there's never going to be peace, there's never going to be agreement and happiness. It just isn't, because it's just the modes of material nature, ultimately, are always in conflict, right? If you're in the mode of passion, you don't really get along with people in ignorance and goodness. If you're in goodness, you don't get along with people. You just don't. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. It can't happen. There's no way to bring that into harmony. They're always in conflict. Right? They're just always in conflict. So criticism is there. It should come to no surprise that materialistic people are upset with the Krishna consciousness movement. Because the devotees of the Lord, just like I remember hearing a while back, the Navagraha Devatas. Does anyone know who the Navagraha Devatas are? Those are the 9 planets, the sun, the moon, Mars, and Venus, and that has to do with astrology, Ketu. Well, there's only one of them who's a Vaishnava. Did you know that? No, not Surya. No. Shani. Saturn, the one everyone's afraid of. There's Saraswati, every those 7.5 year periods when everything kind of slows down and people feel their life's falling apart. And so Shani people are afraid of, but he's the only Vaishnava. And what it is, he makes us slow down and think about our life. He messes with us. Vaishnavas mess with people because they make them think about what they're doing. That's the point. And question, where are you going? What are you doing? Are you doing the right thing? Who are you? Where'd you, So this messes everything up because everyone in the material world has a plan. I have a plan to be happy in this world. And here comes someone telling me, you'll never be happy here. You'll never be happy here. Well, what's that all about? And it's not just a plan we had this lifetime. It's a plan we've had for millions and millions of lifetimes, so it's very much ingrained in our psyche. And here's someone coming and telling us we'll never be happy here. What do they call them? Party poopers? right? People you invite to a party and they bring all the energy down, right? Party poopers, just like, oh God, who invited this person, right? So devotees are like that more than anyone else. Devotees, and the problem is, we have some very good arguments. It's sound arguments about it's true. You'll never be happy in this material world. Dukkhalayam asashvatam. That's right there. Does everyone know what that is? Dukkhalayam asashvatam. That's Krishna's stamp on the material world in the Bhagavad Gita. There's two symptoms of this material world that you're guaranteed. You know what those are? Dukkhalayam asashvatam. You've heard that? Temporary place of misery. Yeah. Dukkha means misery. Alayam, place. Dukkhalayam asashvatam. It is not permanent. So we have those two things going against us. And how can you be happy in a place that it's temporary? They're miserable. Even one says, I'm not miserable now. I have a very nice birth. You know, I'm healthy, I'm young. Like that, I have some money and this and that. I got all these plans. But asashvatam, just wait. All those things will disappear. Disappear. They'll all go away. So this is why the materialists are very, very upset. And Prabhupada's talking, well, that's pretty much the Westerners. Prabhupada talks about the parents of the devotees who join. They're upset because they've also made plans. Part of their plan to be happy is that their kids grow up and become successful, and they can enjoy vicariously through their children and their grandchildren and so on. And also, who's going to take care of me when I'm old? Right? That's a problem when you get old if you got no one to take care of you. Right? We just had one local Panditji pass. The second or third wife just passed away, and his daughter passed away years ago. He has no one to take care of him. No one. There's no siblings, no one left. So he's quite upset. He's quite sad, understandably, and there's no one there. So it upsets the plans of the parents, let alone not being able to understand what it is to be a devotee, and they're very, very critical, like that. They're very, very, very critical of the devotees. And there's so many different stories devotees tell from time to time, and Prabhupada's interaction with parents and so on. But Bhadra Maharaj ever tell you how I think his father's and mother hit Jayatirtha over the back with a rake in L.A. trying to get Badri out of the temple? Ever hear that story? You can ask him to tell the story. So, you know, because back in the 70s, they had the whole deprogramming things, and parents would sometimes come and themselves, and his parents came, and I think one of the devotees hit his father with a rake or something when he was like that. So that's the story he tells. So all kinds of things happened and are happening because people are very, very upset, thinking that these devotees, by their words, have turned my own children against me. Right? Turned my own children against me. You know, they call, you know. So, and then in India, you got the Brahmins, the caste Brahmins, who are very upset with what Prabhupada is doing, because according to the Neo-Hinduism and the caste system, you can't be a Brahmin unless you're born in a Brahmin family. So the Krishna conscious movement is destroying Dharma by giving Brahman to people who have no qualification whatsoever. So Prabhupada is saying east and west, he's getting it from both sides. So that's devotees, Hare Krishna. But we'll come back to that one too, about the Brahmins in India. But Prabhupada is saying we have no business creating enemies. We're not trying to create enemies, just like it says about Yudhisthira. He was a person, I don't know if that's one of his names, but a person whose enemy was never born. Now what that means is he had no enmity toward anyone. People had enmity towards him, obviously, Duryodhana and so on, but he never had an envious feeling towards anyone. He never considered everyone any enemy. Why? Now, he had enemies. That's on the political platform and so on. But why? Because a devotee sees everyone as Nitya Krishna Das, eternal servant of Krishna. Ultimately, everyone's our friend, our dearmost friend. And they simply forgot that. So we're not trying to create enemies. We're simply spreading transcendental knowledge, and it's not appreciated by certain classes of people. That's just how it is. There's certain things you can say, and certain people don't appreciate it, right? That's just the way it is. And it's relative also. Just like if you're in a room full of Republicans, you don't start talking about how good the Democratic Party is or something, or whatever, right? Nowadays especially, they'll beat you up, or worse. So that's just the nature of the material world, that people have their own program, but devotees especially, it goes very, very deep. Because we're saying it doesn't matter what program you have in the material world, they're all bad. Right? It's all bad. Like that one person came to Prabhupada and showed him his palm and says, "Can you tell me my future?" Prabhupada looked at it and went like this: all bad. Birth, death, disease, and old age. All bad. Like that. Not like, all bad. Then he said, birth, death, disease, and old age. It's all bad. Material life is all bad. So, but there's something good. It's not, we're just spreading negativity. One has to, just like, let's say you have an old pakora in your hand. Okay? You're sitting there with this old pakora. You can find them in the walk-in, right? There's old pakoras there, right? All cold and old pakora, right? And then someone comes up to you with a little plate with one of Mahabharat's nice warm samosas on it from today's Raj Bhog with a little chutney next to it. So you have to say, I got to put this old cold pakora down, then I can take the plate with a nice hot samosa on it, right? So the understanding the negative side has to be there in order to convince you to put down the old cold pakora. It's old and cold, Prabhu. Then your hand is free and you can take the nice samosa. So all of this negative preaching about birth, death, disease, and old age, hogs, dogs, camels, and asses, and all that kind of stuff, is to awaken in us a sense of detachment. There has to be some detachment in the material world. There has to be some. Or just like your hand has to be free in order for you to take the samosa. So you can't have both. You can't have both because they're contradictory. So the preaching about detachment is only there to help us understand the real nature of this material world and become inquisitive and even enthusiastic to embrace spiritual truth in the spiritual world, where we'll actually be happy. So that's being very, very merciful and very, very kind. And of course, Prabhupada's pointing out in the purport, it's just the nature of preaching. You're going to have people upset with you. You've been on Sankirtan a lot. You ever get people upset with you? Yeah. Every day. Right? People get irritated or upset or misunderstand you, or some people get very, very, very critical. Sometimes they even attack you. You ever been attacked? Who's ever been attacked on Sankirtan? Raise your hand. I mean, physically. Yeah, it's pretty wild when you get physically attacked on Sankirtan. So I can tell you a few stories after class. Back in the good old days. Okay. Horton Plaza, downtown San Diego. But Prabhupada says here, you have to be very merciful, very, very tolerant. What is it? Tatikshiva Kurunika, Prabhupada says. A devotee is very tolerant, and Kurunika means very merciful. Those are the first two qualities in that verse. Very, very tolerant and very, very merciful. Those qualities have to be there, or otherwise one can't be a preacher. Like that. If you're going out preaching to make everyone your friend, it's going to be a sad day, right? Because not everyone's your friend. Everyone's a devotee ultimately in a spirit soul, but we're going out. Prabhupada says here about if we can execute this duty in the disciplic succession of Nārada Muni, we'll be surely recognized, and devotees just preach. Who knows what's going to happen? They just preach, knowing that Krishna is very, very satisfied with that attempt and that service. And Krishna sends so many different people for their purification and our purification. Sankirtan is the great purifier. Not only are we getting purified, but the people who encounter us on Sankirtan, they're also getting purified. In that purification, it takes many different forms. You know, it's a process. It's a process. And it's not always pleasant, but devotees have their duty. I remember one devotee was telling a story that they were in medical school before they became a devotee, and they were making the rounds. You know what making the rounds means? It's not like this. That's chanting the rounds. You know, what's making the rounds? Yeah, you go around to different patients and so on. And he went up to this one patient who was in a lot of pain, and the patient spit in his face out of pain. Just spit in his face. And but he knew that this person is undergoing treatment, and I know it's very, very painful and so on, and just tolerated it, because what can you do? And understanding where that person's coming from. They're in so much pain, they just spit in his face, and he just kind of wiped it and tried to calm him down and so on. So materialistic people are like that. Very much covered by the modes of material nature. They say and do and so many different things, but devotees are very, 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 very tolerant like that. And Lord Nityananda, in his mood, is Jagayan Madai. That's the ultimate example. And just being very, very, very tolerant, because knowing that conditioned souls will be upset with us. But we have our duty to do. And again, Prabhupada would say, sometimes when he's talked about preaching, Prabhupada said, we're not there to please the conditioned souls, we're there to please Krishna. That always has to be the meditation. Because conditioned souls, when they're conditioned, they're never pleased. Right? They're never happy. Nothing you can do. So we have to just keep giving Krishna consciousness. And we're trying to please the spiritual master in Krishna, like that, by nicely spreading Krishna consciousness. We can't use that as an excuse to do stupid things, and what do you want to call it? Make a bad impression on people when there shouldn't be. You have to be very, very careful. There's many examples of that also. So there's that verse in the Bible. If I get it wrong, who knows the Bible pretty well? This is Christ said something to the effect, they call me the Prince of Peace, but I've come to turn father against son, mother against daughter, friend against friend. Have you ever heard that one before? They call me the Prince of Peace, but I've come to turn father against son, mother against, like that. Prince of Peace, and he's turning everyone against each other. Exact point here. Just by preaching, you're going to have enemies. That's just the nature of it. So we have to be willing to accept that. Willing to accept that. Knowing that it's for the ultimate good of the conditioned souls. We just give them Krishna consciousness. We just give them Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says, preaching can be a difficult, thankless task, but a preacher must follow the orders of the Supreme Lord and be unafraid of materialistic persons. And Prabhupada says, such a devotee, they become recognized by the Lord. He always gives the example in the military. Who gets recognized in the military? The people on the front line, right? You don't get a medal for peeling potatoes, right? KP duty, right? It's the people on the front line risking their lives, like that, and they get all the medals. There's a famous quote by Napoleon Bonaparte. You ever hear of him? You ever hear of Napoleon Bonaparte? Napoleon Bonaparte. You ever hear of him? You've heard of him, right? France, Vive la France. Napoleon, the great general Napoleon, the emperor, right? He said it's amazing that men will die simply for medals. And he was the one who, first person in history, really did a whole thing with medals. Because he said the men are just crazy. They'll actually go and risk their lives just to have a whole bunch of medals on their chest. So he took advantage of that, like that. But those are the people who get decorated, those who actually are out there fighting, like that, on the front line. So the devotees who are out on the front lines, absorbed in serving the devotees are on the front lines, doing whatever they can to push on the Krishna conscious movement. It's right here in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, and the devotional service is guaranteed, and he'll come. In the end, he'll come back to me. There's no servant in this world more dear to me, nor will there ever be one more dear. So Krishna's saying that. In other words, one who knows Krishna's work in this material world is to ultimately get people out. That's Krishna's work in this material world. It becomes very, very dear to the Lord and empowered. Okay. What I want to come back to is this thing it says about the Brahmins in India, their criticism of devotees taking Brahmin initiation and so on. Now, there's a take-home on this that we ought to be very, very careful, because on one hand, their criticism, Prabhupada, sometimes in room conversations in India, Prabhupada brings this up, the behavior of the devotees in India. In fact, I was listening to one room conversation or remembrance, and what happened is in the early years, actually, this is in Jamuna's diary. In the early years when devotees were there, and it was one of the first festivals in Vrindavan and so on, Prabhupada got news that devotees were going through Loy Bazaar on the rickshaws and reaching out and just taking sweets right off from the vendors and eating them, because everything in Vrindavan is cooked by Radharani, And Prabhupada was very upset and called him into his room and set things straight. But he was making the point that, you're giving them some ammunition. They're saying, oh, you give them Brahmin initiation, but they act just like, will be nice, non-Brahmins. Okay? They're not acting properly. So one has to be very, very, very careful not to give them an opportunity to criticize. And, as the years go on, it's interesting. One devotee was giving a lecture that if you tally up all the devotees who received Brahmin initiation over the last 50-something years, how many are actually still acting as Brahmins? So the point being, Prabhupada gave the opportunity, or Prabhupada's disciples are giving the opportunity to people to become Brahmins. That's what he's doing, in hopes that it will continue on. But it's seen that people's nature ultimately prevails. So if you don't have we haven't changed the heart, become purified, then we'll revert to whatever our nature is, and it's not Brahminical. So one has to be very, very, very careful. And I think initiating spiritual masters now, are many of them are very, very careful. It takes a few years between Harinam. Harinam initiation is very liberal. But Brahmin initiation, sometimes it goes for, you find that, a few years you have to wait, right? Just to be absolutely, want to be sure as possible. Because that's the criticism, that, you couldn't change it. You couldn't change it like that. So the change has to be there like that. In our day-to-day activities and so on, how clean we are and punctual and this, that, and the other thing, and learning all the different principles of Brahminical life and being purified and inclined towards that. So I'm going to end here, 8:29. Time for some discussion about these different topics. You have a microphone? There you go. Go ahead.
So this awakening the detachment. I have a lot of things I'm trying to, be detached from, surfboard, motorcycle, a happy life, supposedly, there's hobbies. But anyway, I guess there are different kinds of detachment, in the spiritual realm. So for somebody that's living out there, not you all, but how can I awaken or, being more detached to everything? We had a class on becoming detached to the outcome the other morning here, and I'm practicing that. I'm doing things and it's just not working out, around here. Timing's off and stuff, but so I'm becoming detached, practicing it. It's whoa, okay. So anyway, so my question was, how do I awaken this
detachment?
Yes.
Okay. What was that you were saying the other day? There was that quote about experience, good. Bad judgment. So there's a few things. One is, as far as detachment, it says a intelligent person learns by hearing. a fool learns by bitter experience. So detachment in Krishna consciousness, though, comes from knowledge, hearing, cultivating knowledge, trying to understand. Hearing from devotees and the books and so on about the real nature of this material world. Let's say you're in a relationship. You ever hear that expression, toxic relationship? You ever hear that? Toxic. You ever hear that? Someone has a toxic, what does toxic mean? Poisonous. So it's a bad relationship, right? And you don't see it. And you're just being taken to the cleaners. We'll put that nicely, okay? And your friends will say, hey, come on, this happened, that happened, this, he did this. He said, wow, you're right. My bank account's empty. He took my surfboard. He took my motorcycle. Maybe it's not such a good relationship. So knowledge, hearing that, wait a second. And so knowledge is there, but also one can't maintain all that unless one has a higher taste. That's the principle in Krishna consciousness. Param vishtva nivartante. Param means superior. When one gets a higher taste, then all of these things we're aware of, we can easily give them up. But if we don't have that higher taste, just like if you don't see that samosa, maybe that old and cold pakora will seem like just fine, right? But when you get that samosa, so two things are there, cultivating the knowledge, but also getting the higher taste from hearing and chanting, taking prasadam, good association, then it all, because Krishna's in the heart, ultimately. See, it's all about Krishna. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Buddhi means intelligence. Krishna gives us the intelligence. All of a sudden say, my goodness, that's right. Now where did that come from? That, my goodness, that's right. Krishna. Krishna's in the heart, and he just like turns the light bulb on. Dadami buddhi yogam. For one who's engaged in my devotional service, dadami buddhi yogam tam. So we're very, very fortunate. Otherwise, you can imagine if you don't have devotional service and you're just trying to deny everything. That's the yogi or the impersonalist. That's tough. You know, there's no real higher taste except for the satisfaction that you gave something up. You know. So, does that answer your question in a nutshell? Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Very, very, very profound message. But I have just one I would like for you to clarify. I need understanding, and that is seemingly that opposition conditions in preaching exist in all stratas of spirituality, Christians, Buddhists, to be like. So there's an obvious element or noticeable element in material nature that exists that opposed to anything that's positive. Mm-hmm. Okay? So my question is, what is the solution for such a bitter approach from the opposition? When on Sankirtan, these unexpected and vicious, or rather approaches from material nature, how does one respond to it? Because is there a solution? Can you offer some in detail?
Okay. Well, I made the point in the beginning of the class that on the material platform, there's never any real harmony. Because of material nature, the very nature of this place, it's always in conflict because of the modes of material nature. You can call it what you like. It may be a political idea, it may be a social idea, but there's always conflict because it's ultimately the modes. Everything's the different modes of nature. So Krishna explains in the Gita, when you rise above the modes of material nature, it's a whole different situation. And only until we rise above the conditioning of the material world and the modes is there actually real harmony. There's real harmony. So to the extent a devotee is on that platform or experiencing that platform, even though there may all these disturbances of criticism or distress or whatever it might be, even happiness, Happiness is also material happiness is also disturbing for the devotees. It's enticing. Who are the sirens? You know the sirens are? Come on. Greek. Who are the sirens?
All the sailors.
Yeah. It's in the Odyssey, right? Ulysses and all that. They're beautiful women, weren't they? Right on that island. And they simply, that's where the word siren comes from, by the way. They would be singing very sweetly, but they called the sailors and their boats just crashed right into the rocks of that island, the sirens. So, material world is always a beck and a call. Come on. Prabhupada was just giving a class in New York City, and there's, remember the ice cream trucks? I don't know what song they play now, but there was always the same song when we were kids, the same music. So you hear it in the background as Prabhupada's speaking, and Prabhupada stopped, he goes, "Oh, that is Maya calling. Come enjoy. The ice cream truck. Come on. So there's always that voice. Come on. So that's there. There's the happiness and distress of the material world. It's all a big distraction. And as long as we're, to the extent we're above that, Krishna gives an example in the Bhagavad Gita of a lotus flower. It grows in the water, but it's above the water. So our consciousness, if we're above the water or the modes of material nature, then we're not so much affected by all of these things. We're just not affected. We got to deal with them, but we're not affected by them. I hope that helps.
And is there a difference? You made a clear distinction between an appropriate Brahmin initiation. You said, well, that the initiating guru should be very, I guess, meticulous of who he initiates into the Brahmin. Is there a difference? Because is there a regular initiation versus a Brahmin? I'm kind of confused
in our line, there's two initiations. The first one's your first one. It's called Harinam initiation.
Okay.
Spiritual master empowers you to chant the holy name, gives you a spiritual name. That's for chanting Hare Krishna.
Okay.
In due course of time, devotees who are become more and more advanced in Krishna consciousness, the Guru may give them Upanayanam, that's the Brahmin thread, and they do service for the deities and recognizing that level of Krishna consciousness. The Guru may give someone sannyas. These are all different levels, but they should be given to people who are qualified. That's all we're saying. One has to be careful. But the Harinam initiation was always quite liberal, and it still is, and it should be. People should always be given the chance to chant Hare Krishna, follow the regular principles, and so on. But Brahmin initiation, Prabhupada made that point many times, and it's over and over again. One has to be a little more cautious, because you're expecting more of that person. Just like if we made you the temple president tomorrow, would that be fair? Ross? You see, you sit right in front of me. Like any teacher, I call the person right in front of me. Like that. Okay, if we made you the temple president tomorrow, is that fair? Probably is. No, but it's not fair to you, nor is it fair to the devotees. You may not be qualified. Maybe you are. But I'm just saying, if you don't have the qualification, then it just creates all kinds of problems. It's not fair. It's not the good thing to do. Right? If someone doesn't have the qualification to put them in that position. And we have that problem in the world today. Unqualified people are in political positions, or universities, or running corporations. No qualification whatsoever. And it just creates havoc. It just creates havoc. So, any other questions?
Thank you.
Anything from online?
Hare Krishna. Dharmasetu Prabhu, please accept my
Maitreya, please have mine. All glories to Prabhupada.
Very nice class. This is such an interesting pastime, and this purport is just a gem. So anyway, thank you for your comments on this class. You mentioned about those who are on the front lines and getting medals, and that they don't hand those out for people that are just peeling potatoes. So yeah, in the mundane army, that's true. But in our Sankirtan army, those who are peeling potatoes for the deities and for Krishna, you can go all the way back to Godhead by that activity. And I remember listening to class sometimes while peeling potatoes. not to pick on the example too much, but there's a little magic that later in the day, if you mentally remember what you were doing in the morning, even take your hands and act like you're peeling potatoes, a part of that class will come flooding back into your mind. It's an amazing thing. Remember when we used to pack halva for the rest area during Bhagavatam class? It was a little controversial because people said, oh, everyone should just sit in rapt attention. And we were packing halva and doing different things to bring on Sankirtan. And then, but if you'd meditate later in the day on what you were doing during the Bhagavatam class, you would remember the class vividly. So anyway, just some comments, and thank you very much for your listening comments. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. I mean, the Hare Krishna movement is such a powerful preaching movement. Any connection with it, any connection with it means you're recognized by Krishna, because all our programs are outreach programs, you call that, for preaching. So, just like the books. You got those books. You ever look at the book and go, my goodness, how many devotees are involved in putting this book together? It's amazing. All the artists and then the proofreading and this and that, and then you finally get a book, and then there's money to print it, where all the money comes from to print the book and ship it, and just one book. So many devotees are there. So everything connected to the temple and the kitchen, your potatoes. Just think of the benefit of all those potato plants in Idaho. All those Idahoan potato plants are all getting human bodies in the next life just because their potatoes are used for prasadam. So yeah, anything connected to this movement, because it's for preaching, books and prasadam, Harinam, all those personalities get great benefit like that. We're not doing all this just to be comfortable, or we shouldn't, to be comfortable in the material world. I probably would give that, what do you call it, joint mess? That British term. Well, you just come here, something to eat, relax, nice. No, it's a preaching movement. It's like that, it's a preaching movement. So should we end here? All glories to Srila Prabhupada.